Welcome to the webinar. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Chris, and I'm the Business Development Manager here at JTF Marketing. We've also got our fantastic consultant, Adam, who's waiting for me to introduce him. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We are going to go through today some of the best practice that we can look at for utilising Marketo forms. So things we can do in terms of making sure they've got maximum impact. Just a little bit about JTF Marketing. So we are marketing automation experts. We specialize in utilizing Marketo Engage. We're very much on a mission to help organizations really unlock that value. Some of the things that we try and do is we love the challenge. So we get lots and lots of challenges every day. And we're proud to say that there's no challenge we can't fix. We try to empower you with your automation, and we try to get you to do more. Do more means about supporting you to do more, but also about trying to get us to do more as well. Something that's come up quite a lot in the last week is we are an official solution partner for Adobe. So quite a few people weren't aware of that one. So that's a nice one in there. And also we're a social media award winner back in 2022. So one of the best B2B social media agencies. As mentioned, we're going to go through forms today. So we're going to go through some of the best practices that you can utilize in terms of forms. So we're going to look at global versus local forms. We're going to look at some of the things you can do with progressive profiling, which is going to include a nice little demo from Adam. He's going to show you how to implement some of the features of that. How to utilize thank you pages, some of the ideas that you can get for that. Some of the things around prefills on non-Marketo pages. So that's a nice, interesting one. Some of you might be thinking, but you can't do that. But we're going to go through how that is potentially possible. Things around visibility rules for data privacy and parameters for UTMs as well, so we can track it. I'm going to hand over to Adam. Adam is one of our lead consultants and a solutions architect, as he rightly put me right earlier. And he's going to talk you through forms today because he is the one who's got all of the knowledge around how to help you implement these things.
Great. Thanks very much, Chris. And nice to see you all today. So when it comes to forms, and specifically when we're speaking to our clients, there's a lot of the same problems that we hear quite often. So one of the main things that we hear is that we are creating new forms for every use case and there's no standardization, or our forms aren't really meeting our expected conversion rates in line with our page visits. Or one of the really big ones is actually the look and feel of our forms doesn't really match our branding and isn't really customer friendly. And probably more importantly, we have a lot of records, but they have empty field values. And so we need this information to be able to market to them. So over the course of this webinar, we're going to look at some of the ways that we could potentially combat some of these issues based on obviously what Chris just went through in terms of the contents of the webinar today. So the first slide here is just about global and versus local forms. So when we think about the challenges that you face using local forms, you often find that you've got all these different types of forms for your different use cases. So things like your events or your webinars or your downloads or even your query forms. But you might find that you're over creating them, and like I mentioned, there is no standardization. So you also probably find that you're building a lot of new forms every time you create a new campaign, and you're ultimately losing a lot of time. But by adopting to a global form strategy, you can then improve a lot of different variants. So for example, you can improve your overall consistency. So making sure that your forms look consistent and look and feel and match your website and also your marketing materials. And you can design the form in its most simplest form and make sure that it's consistent across all experiences for all your users. And another big one, which I kind of touched on there, is time efficiency. So a lot of our customers spend a lot of time building out new forms for every single campaign, but instead of creating a new form for every time for each landing page or to be deployed on your web pages, you can reuse global forms and save a lot of time and effort. And this means all you need to do, quite simply, is create a campaign to reference the form itself, and then ultimately where it lives, so you can pull in the data in order to manage it correctly. Another really big valuable or value add for having global forms in place is the ease of updates. So I'm sure like Gus, there's often things that change in obviously the scope of obviously the marketing activities you do. but you need to make changes. And if you have a lot of similar forms across your website, you need to make those changes quite quickly. And so having global forms in place essentially allows you to be able to update them all in one place. Another big win with global forms is data centralization. So by standardizing the data points that you capture in your forms for your different use cases, you make sure that you're consistently capturing the same pieces of information. And also, and we're going to talk on this a little bit more further in the presentation today, is using things like progressive profiling. So being able to capture those different data points to help enrich your data. And also with forms, it gives you the option to A/B test and find out what is actually working and driving the overall submission conversion. So what works better for you. And a really big one, and probably one of the biggest one, is improved reporting. So by centralizing your data, standardizing the look and feel, etc., you can make sure that all the data you're capturing is being pulled in and matches your expectations to make it easy for you to be able to report on correctly. Next slide is just about progressive profiling. So we want to be able to boost our form conversion rates. And a really quick way, if we think about progressive profiling, is allowing you to collect more relevant information and over time from your prospects and customers based on their information and their interests. By using this functionality, it allows you to create a more customer-friendly experience and makes it also as well an opportunity for you to be able to capture more information. But instead of asking for all that information at once, you can do that over time. So I'm just going to skip to Marketo and go to an example I created earlier on. So hopefully you can see my Marketo screen. And I'm just going to go to a form that I created earlier on. So if I just open up my form just now, and I go to edit my form, which will now display. So you see here, I've just got my standard form, which is including the standard fields that I normally would, like my first name, last name, and email address. But I might want to add a few more additional fields and data points to capture over time to try and enrich my data. So I've already enabled a progressive profiling on this particular form, but I'm just going to quickly go to the settings space, which you can do here from the form settings, and then go to the settings area here. And then you'll see here that we have this option for progressive profiling. So at the moment, I've enabled it, but obviously it would be by default disabled. If I go back to the field details area, and then I click on the box, you can see here that it has on the right-hand side a number of blank fields and properties. So essentially what this is saying is that every time somebody comes to this form, it will show 3 new data points to be captured. At the moment, I haven't got any in here. And so I'm just going to drop in a few example values. So for example, if I wanted to add a job function or job title even, and I drag that into the middle, I can then see that's now gone to my progressive profiling box. And then if I just add in another one, like industry, for example, and then drag that in. And then if I just want to preview how essentially this will work, so preview draft, I'll then see that it's got the 2 fields that I've got added in there, and it's currently showing both. But if I want to adjust the settings just slightly, and I go back to the progressive profiling box here, click on the outer layer, and change that to 1. And if I then go to preview draft, you then see now it's only showing industry. So it's really super simple to put in place, but again, kind of looking back to global forms, you can standardize the different data points that you feel is going to enrich your data, and hopefully then obviously be able to boost your overall conversion rates. As a general rule, we would typically recommend for best practice that you show 3 to 5 blank fields every single time, but really you're only asking for those necessary data points. And ultimately, linking back to how you use that information, is ensuring that you're only capturing what you need to potentially score, so that you can then obviously share that information with your sales team as well, to be able to obviously bring that into the conversation based on the information that you've captured. So if I just go back to my slideshow, The next area about forms I'm going to talk to you about is a little bit more about advanced thank you pages. So when speaking to our customers, they often find that their journeys end after a form fill has taken place. So this doesn't necessarily need to be the case. There is rules and advanced functionality within Marketo that allow you to extend that journey for your customers. So in the settings area, it allows you to tailor the onward journey for your customer. So for example, if you want to be able to take the customer to a page where you can then show more content based on their interests and what they've entered in the form, you can adjust their settings by adding different choices, and based on different data points you've asked in the form fill, then link back to a page which will then show them more content relevant to their needs, and then hopefully help to continue that conversation with your salesperson. A good example might be if, for example, you're talking about job function or job level, you could then, for example, say that a manager is then directed to a particular page with this content, or maybe even a C-level person is then shown content which is obviously more relevant to them. When we're thinking about enhancing our customer experience and trying to boost conversions, we also want to make it easy for the end user. And this can actually be achieved when you know who the person is. So Marketo's Prefill functionality on forms essentially uses Munchkin tracking. So this enables you to be able to pull known data into forms for those who are repeat visitors. And for those that don't know, Munchkin tracking is typically deployed on your website. And essentially from the moment they actually touch your website and start looking through different pages, they are being anonymously tracked unless they clear their cookies. However, when a person clicks through from an email directly to a particular page with a form, for example, or they actually fill out a form, that then ties up, and then they are then being classed as a known person. So we've got a bit of an example here on the screen. And so this is essentially showing a page which is about managing your database hygiene. And so on the right-hand side, you see there you've got a register now form, which is essentially to capture the interest. So we used our marketing manager, Helen, as an example here, who obviously is a repeat visitor to our site on the daily, or probably every other 2 minutes, no doubt. But essentially, it's personalizing that experience. It's addressing Helen by her first name, and it's asking if she wants to join the live or watch on demand. And all she simply needs to do is to click the register replace button, and then the form capture will be push through to Marketo with all the details that we need to know, because we already know that information about them. The one thing I would probably point out is that with the Marketo Prefill functionality, it technically only extends to Marketo landing pages as default. And also you need to enable Prefill on actual forms for this to be able to happen. However, there is ways around it, and much to our kind of brand coordinates, we love the challenge. And so quite some time ago, we developed a custom script which allows us to essentially extend that capability to web pages through a JavaScript, which, if you like, links back to Marketo. And if the information is unknown, we're then able to pre-fill that information. And again, it would be able to extend to this experience. So you might, for example, have been to our site and already experienced this yourself. So the next bit I'm going to talk about is a bit more about lead attribution. So we often hear from our customers that they're not able to report on where the customers are coming from, or where drives the most traffic to the website, or even subsequently where their form fill is actually coming from. And that's probably a bigger conversation in itself about attribution, but a really basic thing that you can incorporate into your form deployment and your form structure is using things like UTM parameters. And so if you, for example, use hidden fields, which then are listening out for specific UTM parameters like campaign and term, you can extract that information when somebody lands on the page and fills out a form when they've come from a particular other channel. So for example, if I was to click through from a LinkedIn advertisement to a web page about one of our webinars, and then I fill out a form, I would then, so long as the UTM parameters have been appended to that URL, be able to then obviously push that information into our database, and then we'll then have that UTM information. So that's all well and great, but what do you do with it? So there's a lot of great reports in Marketo, and one in particular is people performance. So a people performance report helps you to understand the number of new leads added into your database. And so you can build out a really simple people performance report, which you then can drill down and gauge down on those UTM parameters to understand, obviously, what is driving more traffic. And one of the last slides today, just skip slide, apologies, technical error. The next bit I'm just going to talk about is visibility rules. And so visibility rules are really handy once you want to, again, kind of enrich your data a bit further and also kind of create that custom experience for your user. So we've got an example here, which is kind of linked to GDPR and making sure that based on certain answers, for example, in this case, if the country is UK, we then show a different field, which is looking to capture other information. But specifically, visibility rules can be added quite easily. All you need to do is in the base property settings in your form, adjust them so that if a person answers the question with this, then we can then show them this. Aside from this particular example, another really common one, and we do it ourselves for our in-person events, is things like dietary requirements. So it's a really simple question, but it's something you need to ask these days, right? And so we ask that question, and then we might then follow up with a question if they say yes, to then give a bit more detail about what those dietary requirements are. But again, it's another example of how you can tailor with that experience and be able to obviously capture that information that you really need. I'm just going to hand over to Chris, who will tell you a bit more about some of the useful resources that we actually have already available on Marketo Forms.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks, Adam. All very interesting stuff there. We get lots of questions about forms, and there's obviously a lot of information that you can go into. So what we thought would be useful is to have a slide up here which will take you to some extra resources that you might find useful. So first one is our gating content guide. So there's a nice little download that you can use there. QR codes on the screen. So if you want to scan it and go to that, then please do. When we do a Q&A, and we've already got a couple of really good questions, we're going to come back to this. I don't feel like you have to do it straight away. We've got the blog as well. So there's various different things on our blog, but we've also got a really interesting blog post about Marketo forms there. Such as the interest in forms and mastering this, we have actually come up with a new bite-sized course. So we do various courses in JTF Marketing, but what we've come up with is a much shorter bite-sized course specifically around mastering, designing, building, and implementing your forms. That's about to go live. So if you want to give that a scan and register interested, then that would be great. Thank you very much for joining us. We will follow up with you after this. We've had a couple of people say that they couldn't utilize the URL, the QR codes with their cameras. So we will follow up to everyone after this. This webinar will remain on demand as well. So if you want to go back and look at some of these fantastic tips, then you absolutely can. Please join us again in a couple of weeks' time. We'll be sharing some more information on Marketo. For the rest of the day, though, have a great day, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, everybody. Catch you later. Bye.